Ready to level up your leadership? This is the Growth Project. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to episode 1 of the Growth Project. This is exciting. And what are we doing now? It's Thursday night before Easter weekend. It's been a long week, even though it's been a short week, if that even makes any sense. But I'm sure you all know what I mean. It's a great feeling going into any long weekend, especially a 4-dayer. So here we are. I thought I'd start this episode with a bit more of an introduction of myself, and so you can understand where I'm coming from and where my experiences have come from, what environments I've been working in. And then we'll move into today's topic, which is going to be focused on my belief of the foundations of leadership. And I think this is a really important place to start, because I think everything that I talk about from this point on is going to be underpinned by what I believe are the 5 foundations of leadership. And I'm going to introduce you to those today, and I'm not going into a huge amount of depth into each of those 5 foundations, but we're going to be going into these in a lot more depth as we go throughout our episodes. And we'll always be coming back to these as well. But I'll give you a bit more of an introduction or an idea of what I'm all about and who I am. So I've spent my work career almost entirely in the energy industry, and I've also done a lot of work and consulting work in high-risk construction environments as well, in particular roads. And I've learnt a hell of a lot about things like safety. I've learned a lot about management systems and things like this, and quality management, which I find interesting. Some of you might not, but I do. I think it's pretty cool stuff. And most importantly, what that's done for me is it's put me in front of a lot of people, and it's had me talking to and dealing with a lot of people. And it's had me learning a lot of lessons, that's for sure. Anyone who is or has been a leader knows what I'm talking about when I say that it really is a separate part of your job. I think we have to blend it as into the way that we operate, but really it's a entirely different skill set than, I guess, the technical aspects of anybody's job. So I've found that really valuable, and I'm really, really grateful for the experiences I've had working in all of these environments. And I haven't always been a leader, of course. I've been, the person digging trenches. I've been the person laying pipe, and I've been the person looking at things from a safety or quality perspective, or a technical compliance perspective. And I guess you could say I've had varied experiences in my leadership skills. As I've gotten older and more experienced, I've approached things differently, very differently, and I think to some extent that only comes with experience. But I guess I wish I had more easy access to resources and materials when I first became a leader. I think whilst I think I would have always ended up where I am now in terms of the way that I approach a lot of things, I feel like I might have gotten there a little sooner, perhaps, had I had access to more information. But I think in this time, we've all got a big advantage in the way that we access information. And that's a really helpful resource for a leader. I'm sure you would agree. So when I talk about the 5 foundations of leadership, I'll tell you what they are. And then what we'll do is I'll go into each of those in a little bit more detail. The first, well, I'll tell you them all firstly. And I believe the 5 foundations of leadership are purpose, vision, empathy, integrity, and authenticity. Okay, so those are the 5 I believe are the underpinning foundations for any leader. And you might be thinking, oh, here we go. He said he was going to be focusing on people in blue-collar environments, and all of those fluffy things don't apply to me. Okay, and if this is you, I would say bear with me. Keep an open mind, and let's just explore this and scratch the surface a little more, because I'm arguing that this applies to anybody who's acting in a leadership position, regardless of what kind of environment you happen to work in. So let's start with purpose. So what I talk about when I talk about purpose is the why. Why are you a leader? Why do you do what you do? There must be something about what you do that motivates you and inspires you to do what you do. It could be the big picture. It could be something you might consider less than the big picture. It could be something as simple as, I want to be known as, or I want to be the most efficient. I want my team to be the most efficient. I want to deliver the highest quality. It could be, I want to change my industry. I want to improve the way this work is done in my industry. So you can see the range and the breadth of the range that your purpose could be. It could be, I want to grow my business. It could be, like I said, I want to drive improvement in my industry. So some people know what their purpose is, but a lot of people don't. So I think that when you don't have purpose, or when you don't understand what your purpose is, it's really hard to have what I think is the second pillar or foundation of leadership, what I think is vision. You need the purpose to establish a vision. So because the purpose is the why, the vision is the how and the when. So for me, as an example, I see a current need in particular industries to help equip frontline leaders with some basic but some really powerful tools to help people become effective leaders. So for me, my purpose or my why, my reason is to, I guess, break down the perceived irrelevance of leadership skills when it comes to tradies and the like. We often start some of our discussions and training programs and coaching programs and mentoring programs with people with the typical eye rolls and, oh, here we go, another pep talk. Okay, so, but when we start talking about these themes, people start to quickly understand that, hang on a minute, I can see the relevance here, because what we have to remember is that we're dealing with people. And whilst people working in different environments can present different challenges, to some level, we are still dealing with people and psychology. Okay, so, and whether we're willing to accept that these skills are important in leadership or not, we may have our head in the sand and think that it doesn't, but the reality is that it does. So for me, That's my purpose. So, but I should say that my purpose has evolved over time, and I think that it should evolve because if I'm pursuing growth and I am growing, then the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing will naturally evolve and change. The goalposts will start to move a little, and I need to be able to recognize that and be agile enough to move with it. I don't think that your purpose or your reason or your why is static. I really don't. I think it's fluid. Now let's talk about. So before I move off purpose, actually, I've been reading a book recently called The Leading Edge by Holly Ransom, and this is some highly recommended reading for anyone in a leadership position. And for me, one of the most powerful chapters was when Holly explores the importance of understanding your why. And I really liked Holly's thoughts on the importance of understanding your why. Holly talks about the belief that purpose is a practice as opposed to something that you find out. Okay. And I couldn't subscribe to that any more strongly. And I think I'm not going to go into any more detail on her book. I'm actually still reading the book, and I would highly recommend it to anyone. I'll put the link to the book on Holly's website in the episode notes for you. So scroll down episode notes and have a look, and the link is there. Very highly recommended. So I'll move on to vision. So for me, I understand my purpose, and that allows me to develop a vision. So I need to have a vision, not only to move towards achieving my goal and my purpose and moving towards my purpose and realizing that. So I use the vision is what gets me there. Okay. So I might have a vision of a few key goals that I'd like to achieve. And the importance here is that not everybody might know my purpose. My team certainly knows my purpose, and we're all on the same page. And to some extent, I feed off the energy that comes from my team to keep me aligned or to recognize when my purpose might need to shift or is shifting. So, but having the vision and making sure that your team understands your vision is what generates excitement and enthusiasm. Now, again, you might be thinking, Chase, I run a bricklaying crew, or I run a plumbing crew, or I run a crew of people who dig trenches, and that stuff doesn't apply to me. But it does. It really does. If your purpose is that you want to grow your business, then that means that some of your existing team members, some of your existing workers might need to step up as leaders in your business in the future. Right? So you can see where I'm going with this. This means that your vision might involve developing leadership skills in these people and providing them with some development opportunities. So it might mean that you need to develop better systems. Your vision could be that I'm going to implement an automated management system or an electronic work management system. You can adapt your vision as you go, but your vision should work towards your purpose. And pardon me. So it might mean, whatever your vision is, if it's not exciting for yourself, you're going to lose energy in working towards your purpose. Your team will be less motivated than they would be if they could see there was something that you're all shooting for. If it's not exciting, what are you expecting from your people? What are they working towards? What's keeping them there? What's pushing you forward? Because if your vision is in any way related to professional success or business success, what is it that you're achieving, that you're trying to achieve? Now, if it's something small, you might not understand what it is you're trying to achieve yet. But maybe it's something as simple as, I want to live a comfortable life and have food on the table and provide jobs for young people. Fantastic. Okay, so think about that. If that's my vision, if that's my purpose, my vision could be, how do I create a stable employment for my team? So that when we start thinking about these things, that's where you can start to see a vision forming. So, and if it's not moving and pushing forward that excites you, then perhaps think of it this way. What's keeping you where you are? And what I mean by that is, if you're a subcontractor and you have a contract with a large company, it pays well. It puts food on the table. You're earning money. You're making profit. You're employing people gainfully. What's going to keep you in that place? Because I'm quite sure that you don't want to lose that. Okay. So your vision might be, okay, how do I perform consistently? How do I get my team performing consistently? That might drive or uncover a vision for you in how you achieve that. So it's really important to remember, I touched on this just a couple of moments ago, around what's exciting your team. So the other reason why vision is so important is that teams and employees absorb the energy of their leaders, and they'll start to absorb that energy and to some extent take on some of the behaviors and the examples that you're setting, and I guess the culture that you're setting. So when we see examples of poor leadership, teams perform poorly. The important thing, though, is to remember that the opposite is also true. When you have a vision, a clear vision, and you talk about it with your people, your team gets on board. They start to feel motivated. They feel inspired. They want to be better at what they do, and they want to strive. And if that's not a clear indication of the importance of having a purpose and a vision, then I'm not sure I'm going to be able to sell this to you. But I would encourage you that if you're still disagreeing with me, think about the possibility that you might be wrong. And if you are, and you lean into this, I can assure you that there will be benefit in exploring it. Yeah, but what if you're wrong? What if it's not rubbish? What if there's some merit to what I'm saying? I would spend some time just thinking about this. With leading a team of people, the next foundation that I think is critically important is empathy and being able to lead with empathy. So, and I'm thinking about this from a couple of different perspectives. So the first I'll explore is, I guess, leading with empathy involves understanding and considering the needs of others. And I'm talking about staff and team members and colleagues. I'm talking about clients and stakeholders. We need to understand the needs of the people involved in what we do. If you don't see the value and the relevance in this, think about how you perform when you've got difficult things happening in your life. Do you perform at your best when things aren't well? If you do, that's great for you, but most people don't. Whether they're willing to admit it or not, I think, and again, be honest with yourself when you answer that question. How do you perform when you're at your best, or when you're not at your best? When you've got heavy things happening, how do you perform? Then think about that in the people around you, in your teams, in your clients, in your other stakeholders. How do people perform when they're not at their best? So if we need people performing when they're not at their best, or when there's things going on for them, the answer is not to click our fingers and say, come on, snap out of it. It doesn't work that way. So we need to have a bit of empathy in the way we're thinking about situations. So there's the well-being angle to empathy. But when we talk about the needs of others, we're not just talking about well-being. We're also talking about, I guess, operational needs, okay, and the needs of stakeholders, including your clients and colleagues. So, for example, it might be that you might have a client who's under enormous pressure to finish a project within budget and by a certain time frame. Now, if you encounter issues and problems and those targets are at threat of not being hit, that is a particular pain point for your client. Okay, so whilst the solution might not be readily available or clear or possible to achieve that, we can at the very least offer a little bit of empathy for the situation. And that goes a long way to maintaining and nurturing the relationship, which again, if we're talking about this in the context of a client, well, that has a direct impact on your, I guess no, I guess it does have a direct impact on your profitability. So when we're talking about empathy towards employee well-being, for example, team or colleague well-being, you have to understand that whilst we need to be empathetic towards people's needs, that also has a direct impact on the performance of your business or your department, whatever it is. So again, this is true whether we're willing to realize and accept it or not. Then there's integrity. So a lot of this, I think, comes down to things like doing what you'll say you do, delivering what you'll say you will deliver. Sometimes you might fail. Sometimes you might not hit that mark. But this is where authenticity comes into play, which I'll get to in a moment, and empathy as well. So we can run into issues. We might not hit the mark. We might miss a target. We might underperform or make a mistake. If we're showing empathy towards the situation and recognizing the difficulty that it's causing, it goes a long way to nurturing and managing the situation. Now, you need to be open enough as well. We need to be open-minded enough to shift our views as a leader. And this again talks to integrity. Sometimes I think what's missing in certain situations is an acknowledgement that maybe I had it wrong. Maybe my idea wasn't right. Maybe my view was a little off center. We need to be open-minded enough to accept new information and consider it. Consider the merits to new information. And we need to be big enough to admit and accept when we might have been wrong. I know that's a scary thought, right? But it's vitally important that we're able to stand up and change our view, change our position if new information warrants that. And that does wonders for relationships between yourself and staff, team members, colleagues, clients, other stakeholders externally. it carries a long way through your career. If you are known as someone who acts with integrity, that is a valuable perception of people to have of you. As a leader, when you create an environment of integrity and you take the high road when things aren't going well, you do the right thing, even when it's hard. This is what people gravitate to. This is what people follow. And when we're leading, we need people to follow. So integrity is vital. Then I think ties in fairly closely with integrity is authenticity. So the first thing about authenticity that I'll say is, if you don't believe in what you're doing, the old saying of fake it until you make it, to a large extent, I'm not on board with. If you don't believe in what you're doing and you're faking enthusiasm, then I don't think we can expect people to follow that. And what happens when people don't feel inspired to follow, or they're not excited by a vision, or they don't get treated fairly, or they feel that they don't get treated fairly, and there can be a difference there between perception and reality. I understand that. But as I said before, if people don't feel like that they're working towards a bigger picture, they will start to look elsewhere. Now, if you run a business or you're aware of the costs involved in employee turnover, then you'll have a healthy respect for this. Now, if you run a business and you have a key team member leave, the cost involved in replacing that person can be significant. It can be crippling. It can be crippling for especially a small business. And a lot of the people that we work with operate with one or two employees. Now, when someone's off sick or on holidays, it can be really difficult. But when someone leaves, that can be crippling. There's the direct costs involved in shutting down an operation while you don't have a crew. Then there's the cost of advertising for employment. Then there's the absolutely quantifiable cost of tooling and skilling somebody up to a point where they become truly productive. You can put a dollar value on this. And whilst I don't have any statistics, it is a crippling thing for a small business to manage. And I'm not saying that being authentic is going to solve that problem, but this is the last of those 5 foundations that I'm talking about, that when we pull these foundations together, we are in a very, very good position to inspire people and give people an energy and something to get excited about when it comes to coming to work. Now, some people might not be driven by the vision of their leader. That's okay. As leaders, we can't always expect people to be as invested as we are. That won't always happen. But what we want, at the very least, is for the workplace to be an enjoyable environment for everybody who's there. Now, if that's all I achieve in my leadership with certain individuals, then look, I'd rather they're on board with my vision and my purpose. But if the very least I achieve of exploring these themes is that people have a better time at work, I'll take that as a win. So what we know is that when people know what you're all about, they feel like it's safer to place trust in you. Okay, so if they know that what they're getting from you is the real deal, that builds trust. And if you can't see the benefit of having a high level of trust between an employee and their leader, then just stop and think about that. If you're a small business that employs 2 people or 1 other person, I've touched on how crippling it can be for a small business to have staff turnover, especially a business of that size. If somebody wasn't satisfied in their job, if they were starting to get itchy feet and wanting to move on, and they felt that they could approach you because they know what they're getting from you, because you're being authentic as a leader, would you not want them to feel more comfortable or to at least increase the odds that they're going to come to you and talk to you? That's what we're trying to achieve here. So for me, when we tie all of these things together, this is where we start to feel a sense of calm. I'm not going to say control, because I'm not sure where I sit on the I guess the school of thought that we want to have control of everything. To some extent, I want a bit of chaos, but I want to harness that. So I'm going to unpack some of these things more and more in future episodes. But I wanted to start with this discussion because it is the springboard for everything else that I'm going to talk about. So I guess for now I'm going to leave it there, because I'm recording another episode soon, and that's going to be themed around, I guess, enhancing and building relationships between team members from a particular angle. Now, my next episode is going to be up more than likely in about 2 weeks' time, and I will publish the notes. I mentioned I've got the link to the Holly Ransom book in the episode notes. Please click subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and we don't want you to miss anything. growthproject.com.au. You can also contact me at jason@growthproject.com.au if you've got thoughts, ideas, examples, inspiration, or even thoughts and ideas on things you'd like me to explore. Please send them through. I should finish this off too by just mentioning that I'm not professing to be an expert here. I'm really not. I'm still in the thick of my leadership progression and my journey. So this for me is a creative outlet, and this is part of my growth as well. So I'm bringing you along for the journey with me. Okay, this is what this is all about. So again, thanks for tuning in. Please, again, subscribe, 5 stars, share with your friends, and we'll check in again soon. Thanks, and stay safe. There you have it, folks. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of The Growth Project. I'm really enjoying the interaction, so please keep the messages and emails coming through. Keep an eye out for our upcoming Frontline Leader Mindset workshops at entertrain.com.au. They're in Sydney and Melbourne, and of course, you can reach out to request a private, customized workshop for your team. Again, that's entertrain.com.au. That's entertrain.com.au. What would really help us send our leadership insights far and wide is 5-star ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or even just share the show with your network, family, and friends. Until the next episode, look after yourself and look after your teams.